The night shift at Earth Defense Station Sentinel was never exciting. At least not for Lieutenant Jake Reynolds, who had spent 3 straight years listening to the endless hum of background static and the occasional stray ping from deep space. Satellites. Most nights he sipped lukewarm coffee and scrolled through ship status logs just to stay awake. But this night, the console screamed to life with an alert he had never seen before in coffee, splashed across his desk as he jolted upright, his heart hammering because whatever came through the deep space channel was not the usual distorted chatter. It was a structured transmission filled with harmonic tones that carried something raw and desperate. Beneath their layers, Jake's hands shook slightly as he rerouted the signal to the translation array, the system hesitating before it started parsing alien syntax it had never processed. Each line of text appeared like pieces of a grim puzzle. His gut tightened while his eyes followed the words forming on the display. The transmission wasn't just a distress signal. It was a plea. It was someone shouting from the void that entire worlds were dying, and no one else had answered. Captain Lavra Mitchell, commander of the S Resolute, had been halfway through what passed for dinner on an orbital station when her wrist communicator lit up red and buzzed against her skin. She wasn't the kind of person to panic easily. Her reputation in the fleet was built on calm decision-making and the ability to untangle disasters with methodical precision. But something in Jake's tone as he said, "Ma'am, you need to see this yourself," made her abandon her food, running down the narrow corridor toward the command deck with a cold knot forming in her stomach. The time she stepped onto the bridge, Dr. Aaron Patel, Earth's most experienced xenolinguist, was already leaning over the console with his hands moving so fast across the interface. It looked like he was playing an invisible piano. "It's not background noise," he said without looking up. "This is deliberate communication, highly compressed, harmonic-based, something we've never cataloged before, and whoever sent it is terrified." The translation crawled across the main display slowly, one painful phrase at a time. "Worlds destroyed, ancient enemy awake, entire civilizations consumed. We beg any who hear to help us." Coordinates followed, star maps that placed the source well beyond human space, far beyond the reach of any known political alliance. Dr. Patel ran it twice to confirm, and then leaned back with a frown. "They're calling themselves the Threxan Confederacy. No official first contact on record, but they're real, and they're dying." Lavra stared at the map, the kind of quiet stare of someone already weighing possibilities she didn't want to consider. "Set up an immediate channel to Earth Defense Command," she ordered. "Tag it Priority Alpha. No delays." Minutes later, Admiral Catherine Olsen's stern face filled the bridge screen. A woman who had fought colony wars and pirate raids long enough to have zero patience for politics. She listened in silence while the translation was played back, her only reaction a slow narrowing of her eyes at the mention of the enemy. The Harvesters. According to the Threxans, these things didn't conquer or enslave. They stripped planets clean, draining life energy itself from every living thing before moving on. And nothing in Threxan tech had even slowed them. Could be a trap, Olsen finally said, her voice low and even. Or it could be the kind of threat that eventually finds its way to our doorstep. "If this is real, and we wait," Lavra said, "then we're next. If their weapons didn't work, it means ours might be the only thing left they haven't adapted to." Olsen didn't respond right away, then gave one sharp nod. "I'm calling the council. Expect orders within hours." Earth's underground assembly chambers beneath Geneva filled with political leaders, military command, and civilian advisors. The debate was brutal and messy. Some argued Earth had no business fighting a war light years away when their own colonies were already stretched thin. Others insisted ignoring such a call went against every principle humanity claimed to stand for. General Ethan Dorsey summed it up best when he slammed his datapad down and said, "If we don't stop them there, we fight them here, and I'm not." Explaining to a mother on Mars why her kid died because we were too afraid to act. In the end, the vote passed by the slimmest margin possible. Earth would send ships, not an occupation force, but volunteers. Crews who knew full well they might never come home. Captain Laura Mitchell immediately put the Resolute forward. Captain Brian Cooper's heavy cruiser Vanguard followed. Then Captain Marcus Shaw's destroyer Falcon, and a handful of smaller escort ships. Engineers worked around the clock to refit kinetic weapon systems and stockpile supplies for long-haul operations. Public opinion exploded into a storm of protest and support, half calling them heroes, the other half calling them suicidal. But for the people packing their gear aboard the ships, it wasn't politics. It was Dute Admiral Olson addressed the fleet before departure, her voice steady across every ship's channel. You are heading into unknown space to face something that already destroyed civilizations more advanced than ours. I won't tell you the odds are good, because they're not. But if humanity has one consistent habit, it's proving impossible. Things can be done. You carry that habit with you. Every one of you. Good luck. The fleet launched within 48 hours, cutting through hyperspace toward coordinates no human had ever visited. Silent on the outside, but every crew member carried the same unspoken thought as they left Earth behind. This might be a one-way trip. The fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Threxan space, and the sight that greeted them was nothing short of apocalyptic. Entire planets floated as lifeless husks, their atmospheres gone, their surfaces scarred black like charred bone. Debris fields drifted silently, orbiting nothing but ghosts of what had once been thriving civilizations. Even the most experienced officers on the bridge of the Resolute stared in silence. No one prepared for seeing a system so thoroughly dead. Scanning for survivors, Lieutenant. Jake Reynolds said quietly, breaking the silence. His fingers flew across his console. I've got faint energy readings on a single orbital station. It's damaged, but still has life support. Broadcast standard first contact package. Let's not scare them more than they already are, Captain Laura Mitchell ordered, her voice steady, but carrying an edge that made the crew glance up. She didn't need to tell anyone how important this first meeting waste reply came almost. Instantly, harmonic tones layered with flashes of light that formed patterns across the visual spectrum. Dr. Aaron Patel leaned forward, his brow furrowing as he listened. They're surprised, confused even, like they didn't expect anyone to answer. A shuttle was prepped and launched with Mitchell, Patel, and Marine Colonel Angela Price leading the delegation. Price had insisted on bringing a full security detail despite Mitchell's raised eyebrow. We don't know what we're walking into, Price had said, strapping her sidearm to her hip. And I don't like surprises unless they come with cake. The station itself was massive, but damaged. Scorch marks ran along its outer hull, gaping holes sealed by emergency force fields. Inside the docking bay, a delegation of crystalline beings waited, each towering nearly 3 meters tall, their bodies refracting light as though carved from living gemstones. When they moved, faint chimes echoed as if wind passed through glass sculptures. Their leader stepped forward, shimmering brighter than the rest, and emitted a layered tone that Patel translated. I am Luminar 5, coordinator of what remains of this station. Captain Laura Mitchell of Earth, she said. We're here because of your signal. Luminar 5 pulsed with a faint blue hue that the translator flagged as relief, though the tone itself carried something closer to disbelief. Your technology is primitive, and yet you came. We are not accustomed to such risks taken by outsiders. Colonel Price crossed her arms, her voice dry. Primitive works fine when the fancy stuff is on fire. Ask me how I know. The Threxans led them deeper into the station, showing corridors blackened by combat and storage bays stripped bare. This was not war as you understand it, Luminar 5 said. This was consumption. They drain life itself, and what they do not eat. They leave hollow holograms projected over the central chamber's table, showed the harvesters in terrifying Detail, biomechanical horrors that looked like a hybrid of deep-sea predators and war machines. They moved in swarms, adapting their own shapes and functions mid-battle. Every single one connected to the others through a biological network functioning like a distributed hive mind. The Threxans explained how their energy-based weaponry failed within minutes as the Harvesters adapted, rendering even their most advanced shields useless. Betel leaned closer, studying the recordings. They learn in real time. That's not biology, that's programming. Yes, Luminar 5 said. And our advanced technologies gave them data to improve faster. Every fight made them stronger. Captain Mitchell's eyes narrowed at the tactical map. She could see the pattern immediately. They're not just wandering, they're choosing their targets. Highest population density first, infrastructure centers second. That's not hunger, that's strategy. Price looked at her, smirking faintly. So basically, we're fighting a space locust swarm with a PhD, or worse, Patel muttered. They might be older than we are, by millions of years, and someone designed them to be unstoppable. Luminar 5 hesitated before pulsing again. You still intend to help us despite these odds? Lavra met its crystalline face and answered, without hesitation. We don't walk away from people asking for help, even if the odds are terrible. Luminar 5 dimmed slightly, which the translator flagged as sadness. You are unlike other civilizations who heard our call and ran. Perhaps you are reckless. Or perhaps brave. Either way, we will give you everything we know. Even if it is incomplete. Data packs were transferred containing swarm movement patterns, weapon signatures, and fragmented recordings of previous battles. Most of it was grim. Entire fleets destroyed in minutes, planets rendered uninhabitable. In days, survivors scattered and hiding like prey, but even in their despair, the Threxans seemed lighter after the meeting, as if simply knowing they were no longer alone made a difference. Back on the shuttle, Colonel Price buckled in and glanced at Mitchell. So, still glad you volunteered for this? Because I'm not seeing a retirement plan here. You know me, Mitchell replied. Strapping in? If it's impossible and stupid, I'm probably already doing it. The shuttle detached, heading back to the Resolute with everything humanity needed to plan their first fight against something no one had ever beaten before. And in the back of everyone's mind was the same question. How long until those monsters figured out Earth existed too? The alert klaxon screamed across the Resolute's bridge, and Captain Lara Mitchell snapped her head toward the tactical display. The swarm had arrived. Thousands of hostile signatures dropped out of hyperspace near Kepler 9 2b, a small mining colony that had no chance of surviving without help. The display lit up like a Christmas tree gone wrong, red icons flooding across it in perfect synchronization. The Harvesters were here, and they were already moving toward the planet. All ships, battle stations, Mitchell ordered, her voice calm but loud enough to cut through the alarm. Shield formations Alpha 3, intercept paths locked. Bring the Falcon and Vanguard to the forward arc. Colonel Angela Price stood near the rear of the bridge, pulling on her helmet as if she were already planetside. They look like angry hornets, she said dryly. Hornets the size of apartment. Blocks. Good thing we brought a big can of bug spray, Lieutenant Commander Sean Carter replied as he ran for the launch bay, his fighter crew already scrambling. He was the kind of pilot who grinned in dogfights because he thought fear was optional. Control. This is Talon Leader. Fighters are prepped and ready. Launch clearance? Clear to launch. Good hunting, came the reply from the flight deck. Officer Carter's 12 fighters roared out of the carrier bay, engines screaming as they cut through space, diving straight into the mass of alien constructs, the Harvesters. Moved like a living storm, each individual unit shifting shape in mid-flight, jagged limbs sprouting where needed, their armor rippling like liquid metal, adapting to kinetic friction. The swarm moved without hesitation. No signals, no visible communication, just perfect hive coordination. The surface, Colonel Price's Marines were already digging in, although digging in wasn't quite the human way. Instead of static bunkers and neat defensive lines, her troops had deployed mobile ambush nests, quick-to-move weapon platforms linked by underground tunnels and sensor traps. "I want unpredictability," she said over the platoon net. "Make them chase ghosts, then hit them where it hurts, and if someone dies standing still, I'll resurrect them just to yell at them again. You're very motivational." "Ma'am," one sergeant muttered, hauling a missile tube into position. Chris grinned behind her visor. "Thank you. I try." In orbit, the first volleys hit human ships firing kinetic projectiles and guided missiles instead of the sleek energy beams the Threxans had relied on. The result was immediate. The Harvester's adaptive armor, designed to deflect directed energy, had no defense against chunks of high-velocity tungsten ripping through their carapaces. The first wave of enemy units shredded apart in showers of glowing debris that got their attention. Carter said overcomes as he rolled his fighter through a hard banking turn, missiles slamming into a target that had tried to flank him. Note for the record, they're all mad at me now." "Good. Keep them mad and busy," Mitchell replied. "Pull them away from the colony." The Harvesters adjusted fast, hundreds of them shifting focus, swarming the small fighter group in an attempt to overwhelm them. Carter grinned. "Bring it, ugly," and dove straight into their formation, weaving and firing in unpredictable bursts. His wingwoman, Lieutenant Jenny Walsh, shouted, "You're insane," as she followed him in. "And we're all going to die, but sure. Let's do this." Back on the surface, the first Harvester pods landed, cracking open to release ground units that looked like a cross between armored beetles and predatory cats. They skittered unnaturally fast, cutting through initial defenses like tissue paper. But every time they thought they had cornered a group of Marines, the humans had already moved, popping out of hidden tunnels or triggering environmental traps. One charge detonated an old mining shaft, collapsing an entire section of terrain onto an advancing Harvester. Wave Price's voice barked over comms. "Good kill, move to fallback. Point Bravo, and someone tell me who rigged that shaft so well, because they're getting free drinks if we live." "That was me, Colonel," a private replied sheepishly. "And I like whiskey." "Make it 2 glasses then," Price said, reloading her rifle and moving to the next defense point for 3 days. The battle raged, orbit to surface and back again. Each time the Harvesters adapted, humans changed tactics, switching weapons, switching strategies, even switching entire unit formations mid-fight. The swarm intelligence struggled, each adaptation cycle falling behind because humans simply refused to fight by any logical pattern. On day 3, something unprecedented happened. The surviving Harvesters pulled back, retreating into high orbit, regrouping like a predator suddenly, uncertain about its prey. It was the first recorded retreat of a Harvester force in history. Did we just make apex predators run away? Carter said, breathing hard as he landed his battered fighter back in the hangar. "Because I'm gonna need someone to confirm I didn't hallucinate that." "You didn't," Mitchell said on the bridge, her expression unreadable, but her voice steady. "And they're going to come back, but now we know they can be hurt. For the first time in centuries of recorded galactic history, the Harvesters had been stopped, and it was by the one species no one expected to survive their first encounter." Word of humanity's victory at Kepler 92b traveled faster than any ship could fly, carried on quantum communication relays that connected every major star nation in the galaxy. At first, the reports were met with disbelief. No one believed a species with only 50 years of faster-than-light travel could succeed where civilizations millions of years old had failed. But disbelief quickly shifted to panic when confirmation poured in from neutral monitoring stations. The Harvesters had actually retreated, an outcome no one had ever seen before in the underground halls of the Galactic Council Station orbiting Alpha Centauri. Representatives of dozens of species filled the great chamber. Some floated in gravity-null cocoons. Others sat in protective, environmental shells, and some simply projected holographic avatars. It was the most diverse gathering in centuries, and yet every voice was raised in chaotic argument about one topic. Earth. They used kinetic weapons. One crystalline envoy shouted, its voice like shattered glass. Archaic metal slugs, completely. Primitive, and yet it worked. This should be impossible. They didn't just use kinetic weapons, replied an insectoid delegate whose antennae were twitching violently. They used chaos. Multiple shifting tactics. They fight like wild animals with strategic thought. No pattern for the swarm to adapt from the human side. Admiral Catherine Olsen stood at the council floor's center podium, hands clasped behind her back. Her simple uniform looked almost unimpressive, next to the ornate ceremonial armor and shimmering cloaks worn by other species. She spoke plainly. Our technology is different. Our environment made us different. You call us a Deathworld species, and you're right, but being from a Deathworld teaches you one thing very fast. You adapt or you die, and we've been adapting since we climbed out of caves. Luminar 5, the Threxan coordinator who had personally witnessed the battle, pulsed its crystalline body and stepped to Olsen's side. The humans are reckless but effective. They fought where we would have fled. They did not give the enemy time to adjust, and for the first time in 6 months of disaster, we saw hope. We support their plan. That word, hope, seemed to silence the room for a moment. The delegates were not used to hearing it in context with the harvesters. Until now, the war had been one long chain of losses. Worlds evacuated or consumed, fleets shattered, populations displaced. And now these primitive Deathworlders had made the enemy retreat. The tone of the meeting shifted immediately. The human proposal was radical. Instead of forming one massive fleet to engage in a single decisive battle like most species preferred, they suggested scattered simultaneous strikes using mixed species units, each operating with entirely different tactics and weapon types, forcing the harvesters to split their adaptive processing across multiple battlefronts. Think of it as making them chase ghosts, Olsen said. Except the ghosts have shotguns. Not everyone was impressed. A towering warrior from the Drahor clan stood and bellowed. Your plan is cowardice. Deception and hit-and-run attacks are dishonorable. We would rather fall in glorious combat than skulk like predators in the dark. Colonel Angela Price, present as a military advisor, smirked and muttered just loudly enough to be picked up on the live audio feed. Yeah. And look how that's been working out for you so far. Several delegates gasped. A few laughed, and the Drahor warrior sputtered in outrage. But Luminar 5 pulsed blue again. The humans may be rude, but they are correct. Honor has not stopped. The harvesters, perhaps it is time to try dishonor. The debate went on for hours. But one by one, species who had lost entire worlds voted in favor of the human plan. The Nexus Collective, an artificial intelligence civilization that had run millions of war simulations, finally spoke. All projections show 0% success using traditional doctrine. Human unpredictability has a non-zero chance. Therefore, we recommend adoption of their model. And with that, the largest alliance fleet in history began. To take shape, humans worked alongside alien engineers to combine technology, kinetic railguns with energy shielding, quantum-linked targeting systems with human-designed missile swarms. Fleets were reorganized into mixed units, each commanded by human officers trained to improvise mid-battle. Light wasn't smooth. Training exercises were chaotic disasters at first, with completely different physiologies and combat doctrines clashing constantly. But Colonel Price solved that problem in her own unique way. Pair every human squad with alien partners. 1-to-1, no excuses. You learn each other's style. Or I personally make you do push-ups until your species evolves stronger arms. Over the next month, things started to click. Human Marines fought alongside towering Dromor warriors. Nexus combat constructs synced their processors with human fighter pilots. And Threxan engineers integrated adaptive shield technology into human warships. Alliance slowly became an actual team, but while they trained, the Harvesters weren't sitting idle. Reports came in of swarms moving toward the Centauri sector, larger and faster than before. Their adaptation curve had shifted again, incorporating tactics learned from their previous defeat. The enemy had recognized humanity as a legitimate threat and was responding, in Admiral Olsen gathered the fleet commanders. Her voice grim but steady. "We don't have time for perfect training or pretty plans. We launch now, half ready. Or not. If we wait, the Harvesters take Centauri, and then we're right back where we started. Only this time, we don't have surprise on our side. The massive fleet prepared for deployment. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species, all about to fight side by side under human strategic command." As Captain Lara Mitchell stood on the bridge of the Resolute, watching final checks complete, she whispered to herself, "All right, Galaxy. You asked for help. Let's see if you can handle what you just got." For the first time in living memory, the Galaxy wasn't just running from the Harvesters anymore. It was about to fight back. The Allied fleet launched in 7 separate task forces, each heading for a different target. The plan was bold to the point of madness. Hit the Harvesters on multiple fronts, each fleet using entirely different strategies and weapon systems. Every strike designed to confuse their adaptation cycle and stretch their hive intelligence thin. No one in galactic history had ever attempted something like this, which was exactly why humanity believed it could work in the bridge of the Resolute. Captain Lara Mitchell watched the jump countdown tick toward 0. Her crew was tense, but focused, every station humming with controlled chaos. "All ships, final check," she ordered. "And someone get Carter to stop singing in the fighter bay." "It's terrifying morale." The comms crackled as Lieutenant Commander Sean Carter responded. "That's not singing, Captain. That's battle prep music." "You're welcome. Then consider yourself muted for the rest of the battle," Mitchell said dryly, a faint smile tugging at her mouth. Moments later, the fleet snapped into hyperspace. The enemy was waiting. More Harvesters than any battle before, swarms pouring through the system like a tidal wave of living metal. Their new adaptations were obvious. Stronger armor against kinetic weapons, split formations to avoid human ambushes, even countermeasures. For missile swarms, they learned from Kepler. Colonel Angela Price muttered from her ground assault shuttle, "Smart bugs." "I hate smart bugs." The fighting began instantly. Allied fleets slamming into the swarm with everything they had. Railguns thundered, energy beams carved glowing lines through space, and drone swarms engaged in brutal dogfights with Harvester flyers. The battle was chaotic, unpredictable, exactly as planned. And the Harvesters faltered, their distributed intelligence hesitating, unable to adapt fast enough when every attack came from a completely different doctrine. But victory wasn't guaranteed, because even as Allied forces scored kills, sensor sweeps confirmed something horrifying. The largest concentration of Harvesters wasn't even here. They were still protecting their origin point near the galactic core. "We're fighting their distraction force," Admiral Catherine Olsen realized. "Their core nest is untouched." That was when Dr. Aaron Patel came over the command channel with his discovery, his voice tight with adrenaline. "We finished decoding their genetic structure. It's artificial. These things were built, not born. And whoever built them added a failsafe, a genetic kill switch buried deep. We can activate it, but only from their origin node at the core." Captain Marcus Shaw of the destroyer Falcon didn't hesitate. "Send me the coordinates and the signal parameters." "I'll take my ship." Mitchell shook her head. "Marcus, that's suicide, you know that. The core is crawling with them." "Yeah, I noticed," Shaw replied with a grim laugh. "But somebody has to do it. and I've got a crew crazy enough to say yes. There was no time to argue. Within minutes, the Falcon broke formation, engines blazing as it dove straight toward the coordinates. Every other ship drawing the swarm's attention to clear them a path. Falcon's journey into the core was like flying into a nightmare. Gravitational anomalies ripped at their hull, radiation storms fried sensors, and the closer they got, the thicker the Harvester presence became. "They know we're here," Shaw said quietly, gripping the armrest of his command chair. "All hands, weapons free. No one stops firing until we're inside that nest." Lieutenant Sarah Martinez on communications handled the last link with the Allied fleet, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Transmitting location markers now. Signal will degrade in 60 seconds. Good luck, Falcon, and thanks. Save the thanks for when we're done," Shaw replied. Before cutting the channel, he looked around the bridge at his crew. Every one of them volunteered, knowing this was probably their last mission. "You all know what to do. Let's make it count." The nest itself defied description. A structure the size of a small moon, pulsing with sickly light, organic tissue fused with machinery in ways no natural evolution could explain. Millions of Harvester units swarmed around it, like antibodies protecting an organ. "Find me an entry point," Shaw ordered, his helmsman pushing the Falcon into a desperate burn toward a narrow vent structure. Point defense guns blazing to keep pursuing Harvesters at Bathy made it inside, carving a path through corridors lined with living metal, deeper and deeper, until they reached the control chamber, an ancient device at its heart, glowing with streams of alien code. Chief Engineer Marcus Bell got to work, connecting human tech to alien systems. "This is like trying to hotwire a starship with chewing gum and prayers," he muttered. "But I can do it. Just keep them off my back." That job fell to Shaw himself, grabbing a rifle and joining the security detail as Harvester drones broke. Through the doorway, the firefight was short, brutal, and desperate. Every second bought Bell more time. Finally, Bell shouted, "Signal primed." Now, Patel's failsafe command pulsed through the alien network, and for the first time in their history, the Harvesters froze, their bodies shuddering as if an invisible wave passed through them. Then one by one they began to collapse, their adaptive structures disintegrating, the hive mind streaming across psychic channels before going silent forever. From the smallest Sout to the largest hive unit, every Harvester in the galaxy died at the exact same moment victory came at a cost. The Falcon's hull was torn apart by the collapsing nest. Their last transmission a simple message: "Mission complete. Tell them we did it." Silence swept across the battlefields. Allied crews staring as enemy units disintegrated into harmless debris. A roar of cheers echoed through com channels, soldiers and pilots crying, laughing, shouting into the void they had survived. Something no one thought possible days later, the Galactic Council named Earth as a core power, not because of its technology, but because of its people. Unpredictable, stubborn, reckless, but willing to risk everything for strangers. The term Deathworlders shifted from insult to honor badge, whispered with respect across every star nation in the new capital on New Geneva Station. A memorial was raised for the crew of the Falcon, a simple plaque that read, "When the galaxy called, humanity answered it." That was how the war ended, not with overwhelming firepower or superior technology, but with humans doing what they always did best, facing impossible odds and refusing to quit.